So I want to do a real quick moratorium on the NBA draft lottery and just what a joke it is. At this point in time, if you believe that the NBA is not rigged, I have some swampland in Florida to sell you. Literally at this point, this is almost WWE levels. Like, how can you have any respect for the sport any longer when, again, being generous in my interpretation of this, the franchise that completely screwed up, traded away their once in a lifetime star talent, they get bailed out in the NBA draft lottery and get the number one pick in the Dallas Mavericks. And I 100% now believe that the league made the Mavericks trade Luka to the Lakers and then rewarded them with this pick. So let's take a look at, and I have a whole video breaking down all of my reasons for that. The only thing I think I had forgotten to mention in that one was that there was also a weird scenario where Anthony Davis had a trade kicker where if he was traded, he was owed a few $1 million, and that amount would have put the Lakers, because it would have been incumbent upon the Lakers to pay that amount, that would have put the Lakers into the second apron for the luxury tax. So it would have been really restrictive. It would have put a bunch of restrictions on their team, and it would have been really negative for them. And he waived that trade exception. So he basically was moved from the Lakers to Dallas, and he let both teams off the hook. Well, he let the Lakers off the hook for that. So that was the one thing I didn't mention, but now we'll dive into how this is basically something that has been going on forever in the drafts, at least in recent times. And I saw a few posts on it, which I thought were kind of funny, but I wanted to highlight this one in particular. All right, so as you can see here, it basically breaks down some of the more recent times where teams got very fortuitous, basically number one picks. And it breaks down the percentage chances of each one of them. And I actually have a few other examples that I'll throw in as well that weren't included on this one, but these were just kind of some of the highlights that they had in this one. And it's even shown on ESPN, which is hilarious because I'm going to show later the talking heads are, even some of the talking heads are coming around to actually having to admit that this is insane. But even then, the ESPN analysts, like, they don't want to touch this topic with like a 50-foot pole. And it's hilarious to me because I don't know if it's because they are like cognitively dissonant, where they're like, no, this is a real sport, there's no corruption here, or if it's like they're told not to from the heads of the network, and like the social media people are just not following the same rules. But again, we'll dive into that a little bit later. But just following the list of what's on here, right? So we have LeBron signing with the Heat in decision 2010, whatever. And then literally immediately after, the Cavs win the lottery with a 2.8% chance, and they select Kyrie Irving, who by all accounts, he's had a pretty good career so far. He's been a pretty good player. Next example, and this one's probably the weakest out of all of them, including the other ones that I'm going to mention outside of the graphic that was put together. 2011, Chris Paul was traded to the Clippers, and he was rejected, and this is why I think it's kind of weak, because they rejected him going to the Lakers. That was originally where he was supposed to go. So, like, to me, it's kind of like, all right, like, yes, it is weird that then the Pelicans, which were the Hornets at the time, the Pelicans ended up with, after losing, because Chris Paul was on the Hornets and then went to the Clippers, another big market team. Yes, not the Lakers, but Then the Pelicans win the lottery, and a 13.7% chance doesn't seem that bad, right? But you forget that at this time, now the lottery has been flattened. So the highest percentage chance that any team can get the number one pick is in that neighborhood, like in the 13% neighborhood. But back then, there were teams with much higher odds. So it still was kind of an upset, not to the level that this year's pick, so essentially what's going to be Cooper Flagg, this pick is way more of an outlier where it's a 1.8% chance, whereas at this one it was 13%. So still at the time relatively low, but a little bit less insane, which is another reason why I think, again, this is one of the less egregious examples. The next one was when Anthony Davis left the Pelicans, and he basically was like threatening to walk away completely, and just because he was a free agent, so just to go to LA no matter what. So then he shoehorned the Pelicans into trading him, but then immediately after, they get the number one pick, which turns into Zion Williamson, which by all accounts, again, he's kind of washed out, so hindsight is 2020. Or at least there's question marks because it seems like he's always injured. But at the time, like, this could be a generational player. Like, his freak athletic ability it was highly touted. And so, again, it just so happens that a huge player forces their way to the Lakers, and then their organization is immediately rewarded when they had only a 6% chance of winning the lottery at that time. So again, it's kind of eyebrow raising. And then you go to the most recent example, which was Luka getting traded this season, and then with a 1.8% chance of winning the lottery, the Mavericks got that after trading Luka away. Which is just, and the most hilarious thing about this is basically everyone has flipped on social media. First, I'll get into the other draft coincidences that were not included on this list. And number one, the first one, and it's funny, it's all actually Cavs related. And yes, there was the Kyrie Irving with the 2.8% chance of winning in 2011. But there was also LeBron landing on the Cavs in the first place. And if you haven't seen it yet, I suggest taking a look at it. He actually had an interview recently where he basically stated that was fixed. That he grew up in Ohio, in Akron, and so the NBA wanted to make sure that he ended up on Cleveland because that would be the most compelling storyline. So in that season, he was drafted to Cleveland when he came out of high school because it would be a good narrative storyline for the NBA. So he himself, and he didn't straight out say it, but he was kind of like, well, teams just happen to end up with the number one pick when it's when there's a compelling storyline, and it's like, yeah, okay, thanks, LeBron, like that's great. The next one was actually when LeBron finished his stint in Miami, when everything was kind of washing out because they had an older team, so their chances were really low. And then what everyone forgets, because Cleveland didn't use the pick, was they were awarded the number one pick then as well. And what they did was they then flipped that pick for Kevin Love, which is very coincidental. Okay, you have Kyrie, who's doing great. You have LeBron, who's a free agent, and he can go wherever he wants. And then, oh, hey, we just picked up Kevin Love, who was arguably, probably one of the 10 best players in the NBA at the time. Definitely one of the most dominant big men who was really good at shooting, outside shooting, which fit the prototype of who LeBron likes to play with and who he functions best with. And then so to entice LeBron to come to Cleveland. Okay, well, now we're going to ship that pick out for Kevin Love. You have Kyrie Irving. You come here. That's a big three, and then we can build around you with role players. Again, two very additional examples where in recent times this has happened again, and it just leaves you scratching your head where you're like, come on, man. How can you defend this at all? And then we will go to Twitter, to the point I was making before. And this is so hilarious to me. Literally just if you look in here. So they posted to the NBA, so the actual NBA handle, draft lottery process resulting in Mavericks #1 overall pick. They post the whole thing. And just the comment section here is hilarious. It's literally just like, rigged. This is so rigged. What happened? Who won? Please tell. Like, what a joke. Real draft lottery process, money. So it just, yeah. So I had seen an article that was basically talking about this and how it was basically like throwing dirt in fans' eyes that, okay, not only are we doing this, which everyone is saying rigged, but now we're going to be so tone deaf that we're going to post a video of them winning it. And the funniest thing to me in all of these was, and I've seen it in multiple threads, because they've posted a bunch of videos about the draft lottery, but almost every single one of them has something to this effect, where basically someone puts a "do you think this is rigged" survey in there. And so this one is, the NBA was down in ratings, and so they forced the Luka trade and told them, the Mavericks, they would get the #1 pick. Facts or false? So essentially like 90% of people are saying that's what happened, and 10% of people live in LA. That's basically what this comes down to. And I just think it's hilarious because, yeah, at this point in time, it's so flagrant. Like, I don't know how anyone could defend this at this point in time. But, again, just this has been in multiple threads, but I found it so funny. And, the internet is undefeated. But, yeah, I don't know how you can defend it at this point. And then we will take a look at, because I think the funniest thing to me is I watch Hoop Collective fairly regularly because it's just a nice breakdown of the NBA, and they do a pretty good job, and the conversations are typically somewhat interesting. So immediately after, they call basically emergency podcast where we need to discuss it, and the defense of it was just hysterical to me. So we'll take a look at it and then dive into it a little bit more.
Listen, there might be a bunch of conspiracy theories out there, but that dumbass one about the Mavs are moving to Vegas, I think, went kaput tonight.
Okay, let me ask.
Okay, that one, I do have to make a comment on that. That actually, because I had mentioned that in my video that broke down why I thought it was basically fixed for the Lakers. But yes, I agree that, because I covered that as like the actual conspiracy theory. Like, if you want to say like conspiracy theory, like that one was a little bit more far-fetched, which I even called out in my previous video. But I was just saying it's a point on a graph, and you can make a line out of it. But yes, I think if anything, they're just going to start a new franchise in Las Vegas. So yeah, I agree with his take here. I don't think that the Mavericks are looking to pack up and move to Las Vegas. I think they just were very heavily incentivized, for all the reasons in my previous video, that for them to trade Luka to the Lakers, including a 1.8, overcoming a 1.8 or making a 1.8% shot to get the #1 pick in this draft lottery, with a prospect that is projected to be, basically once again projected to be a generational talent, which, who knows, you could wash out like Zion, but it's when the NBA comes knocking on your door and says you need to do something, I don't think you have much of a choice, unfortunately.
Ask you this, please, because my phone is blowing up too. What is the conspiracy? I mean, I know the conspiracy theory is that allegedly it was fixed for the Mavericks. Please explain the conspiracy to me.
I mean, the conspiracy is that okay, I don't want to explain the conspiracy.
No, I understand. I'm
we
just
can
saying,
explain
The conspiracy theory in 10 seconds would be that a team that's fan base had completely turned on and shut off the franchise just was given a complete lifeline by getting a generational prospect to show up immediately after
the fan base.
Which is not even a good explanation of what happened. Like, they don't even want to bring up the LA component of it. That basically, and this is what it all stems from, is that they're being rewarded for trading Luka to the Lakers. That's the whole first part of it. They don't want to touch that with a 50-foot pole. They're totally skipping over what is the beginning factor, and they're framing it as, well, Nico Harrison just made an awful decision, which is like, okay, man, but like, what's the context of that? Like, why are they then being awarded? That's what everyone's losing their mind over, is that the whole thing is rigged, and that the NBA basically threw the Lakers a life raft and completely bailed them out of a team that was going to be atrocious for at least the next 5 to 10 years. Like, they have no assets, no talent, aging centers are never good. LeBron was going to retire and leave them with nothing in the next couple of years. Like, that's what everyone's flipping out over. That's what everyone's pissed off about. And they just completely gloss over that entire context in addressing the conspiracy theory.
Bases in Washington and Utah and Charlotte that have shut off that franchise. Those
don't care. I have a very long speech about the lottery rules, but we'll save that for a second.
Wendy, there's a little bit of a difference between, hey, your team's just been bad or recently got bad, has been bad for a little while, versus you traded a generational player months after the finals as he's approaching his prime. And there's one thing if it's apathy, but the outrage was in Dallas was pretty unique. Having said that, I don't want to discuss.
I've heard some Ricci conspiracy theories. I think people just
we don't need to spend time.
I'm just saying.
Let's talk about.
It's not a logical conspiracy theory. Okay,
so here is the logic. Here's the logic. The NBA changed the lottery rules a few years ago.
Bro, no, it's so funny to me. Like, how can you not find that hysterical? Like, no. Like, 2 out of 3 of them are like, no, we're not even going to discuss this. No, we're not. We are not even going to discuss what's going on here. Like, methinks thou doth protest too much. That's kind of what this comes down to, and that they don't even they shouldn't even have done the emergency pod at this point in time. Like, just don't even discuss it. Move on from it, because you sound like you're clowning yourself, basically. Like, come on, man. Everyone thinks it. Look. Like I just showed you the Twitter feed on the NBA handle. Like, everyone thinks it's a conspiracy theory. Like, there's no one that doesn't think this. So what are you doing, man? Like, there's been some wild conspiracy theories out there. Again, I don't know if it's just cognitive dissonance that they don't want to admit that it's completely rigged, and that, like, they've invested, their entire lives covering something that's no better than professional wrestling at this point. I mean, a little bit, right? Because the outcome, I don't think the outcomes are rigged, but I think, the seeding of talent in certain areas and moves being made are 100% rigged. But, is it that they don't want to admit that this is what their life's work has been? Or is it that they're making millions of dollars covering the NBA and they don't want to basically anger the NBA gods, Adam Silver, whoever? They don't want to piss them off, and they want to continue just milking this cash cow, which actually I think this happening will damage ratings even more, because then people get apathetic to it. And so next year, I think you're going to have another whole, conversation and multiple news cycles about why are the ratings down this year? Well, because you rigged the lottery, and there are teams who have been bad to the point that they're making. There have been teams that have been bad for a while, and they basically get usurped by someone who was in the finals last year because they traded away their generational talent because the NBA told them to. Like, that's what the issue is, man.
Ago to flatten the lottery odds and make it less advantageous for teams to tank. It's been a colossal disaster and a complete failure. And this today is the nail in the coffin to me for this whole thing that they have put in place.
Why?
You look at the teams that got the first, second, and third picks.
Yeah.
Those are teams that have playoff caliber rosters that were in the lottery because they had injuries.
Yep.
In the Mavericks case, they had to trade and then also catastrophic injuries.
Right.
You have a situation where you have multiple bad teams that were trying to get high draft picks for the past couple of years to get the kind of player that could turn their franchise around. They're picking 5th and 6th in the draft. You have teams that already have loaded rosters getting elite prospects in this draft. Like, the bottom line is,
but isn't that the point?
Hold on. The NBA did this to discourage tanking. So if you're in the league office, you said, "Hey, you chose to tank.
Right.
We've outlawed it. We've tried to discourage it."
I think this means it's working, Bontemps. I think they like this.
I disagree.
And it kind of devolves from there. That kind of outlines it. And so I give props to Tim Bontemps for him actually kind of broaching the subject without fully diving into what I have outlined, where it's like, it's purely rigged, like it's a complete scam, at least the selection component of it. And he tries to frame it as, well, there's, if they made it, and he goes on to kind of, here's a different way that maybe they could do it. But instead of making it a lottery where there's just, and this has been my problem with it. That's why I like how the NFL does it, where it's literally just, you finish last, you get the first pick. And to their point, yes, there is an issue where, yes, teams can tank. And I think there would have to be some, because a single NBA player has a much larger impact on a franchise than an NFL player would. And so the thing is, like, I think there have to be like very, very, very aggressive tactics that the NBA would have to take, where if it's suspected that you're tanking, if there are, people out with BS injuries, or, if you select so many times in a row, like 2 times at the top as the number 1 pick, or the 3 times, you automatically get thrown down to the last pick, or your pick is forfeited, or something. That's for them to figure out. Those are just a few ideas that literally just popped into my head right now. But the thing is that at least 1 out of 3 of them is making the case that something needs to be changed, basically making the process less opaque. So more transparent. You can see exactly what's going on. You know that, hey, Team X had the worst record throughout the entire season, so they're going to pick first. There's no like, they've been jumped by 3 or 4 other teams, or whatever. Basically what happened in this one, where it's like it's just maddening, right, to all the fan bases that they see this happen, and then they go, well, then why am I even watching this? This is obviously a scam. Like, what the heck is going on here? But I just wanted to cover it at a very high level, just kind of take a look back, because I did recently make a video on the Luka trade and why I personally thought it was rigged and the NBA made the Mavericks trade him. And this is, again, just another point on that graph that's forming a line that basically is telling you, yes, this whole thing is rigged. Like the video if you thought it was interesting, or if you like the points that I brought up. Comment on what you think. Is this rigged? I would personally love to see just an entire comment section of just rigged. Because, again, this is hilarious. And I think no one at this point can possibly try to say that it's not rigged. So, would love to see that. And then share the video if you found it interesting, or if you have a Lakers or Mavericks fan in your life that's trying to say that it's not rigged, because I think it's a little bit too on the nose. And I think at this point, even I've already taunted the one Laker fan that I know, and he really didn't have anything to come back with on this point, because at this point, what can you say? Like, this is just it's too cartoonish. Like it's hilarious. But subscribe if you like to see more videos where I dive into all different topics across the spectrum. And thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next one.